go ahead and give us a shout out on there. But I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I always like to start with a high-level description of Pantheon, and that is over there on the right. That is Pantheon, the building we're in. That's the building with the pagoda here in downtown San Francisco. But our story starts a long time before we were in this building, or before any of our founders were in the city. They started a company called Chapter 3 and 4 Kitchens. And we have 4 founders, and they built a lot of websites over about a decade. And the thing they realized is, well, we're building these same large-scale sites over and over again, but we're also on the hook for all of the support and upgrades of these stacks we've built, training the teams, making sure that there's no single point of tribal knowledge as we're transitioning out of those projects as an agency, or having to come back and start new work. And they realized, well, if we're doing the same repeatable things, maybe there's a pattern in here we can take advantage of and transform that into a platform or something. So they started by looking at architecture they were building. That was the real driver of this. They were being called into a lot of projects because they were the scale experts. They could tell you how to set up a cluster for your very scalable site, or if this was a better site to fit on a single VM, or maybe this was just a little site that shared hosting might be the thing. But it was a mixture. And the thing that they, after a long time of being in business, realized that they were no longer responsible for those individual decisions. They were responsible for a set of environments, not just the production environments, but the development environments, the testing environments, all the team management that went along with this, all the credential management. They said, well, why don't we turn this into a platform? Why don't we do something like Salesforce did for the CRM? With Salesforce, for instance, you're not worried about provisioning RAM or a certain allocation of disk space or anything. You are worried about making it scale for your use case. Well, that's pretty much what they did. They took the concept of containers, they looked at Heroku and Google Apps. So these are built on this hyper-scalable technology embedded in Linux called containers. And what they've built is this very simple layout or architecture. At the top, you see what we call our edge layer, load balancing and routing. We have Varnish baked right into it. Then there's an execution layer in the middle. It's PHP containers, or PHP running on Nginx inside of these containers. And then below that is a database and our Pantheon file system. And no matter if you're building a single small site that has very modest traffic needs, or you're building patch.com, or the New Republic Online, or the Boston Herald, that needs hyperscale at a moment's notice, it's the same platform. It's one big application that you are using a bit of. It's a standardized approach to doing all of the things you need to do to build, launch, and run websites. And because it's that standardized approach, it makes DevOps a lot simpler, a lot easier, and makes you as a company using this much more scalable. We think we're helping agencies, and they tell us move faster as a team and be more productive as a team using the standardized methodology, using the workflow that we provide and fitting their workflow into Pantheon, especially given the recent advancements with Quicksilver, which I think we'll touch on later slightly. And the long run of this is by standardizing and streamlining, people find that they can take on not just more individual projects, but also larger projects. When you don't worry about scale and you don't worry about the infrastructure breaking, you can take on larger projects with the same knowledge base you know. Quick brag sheet, we have a lot of time and effort into this. We're running a good chunk of the web at this point, somewhere over 0.1% of the internet runs out of Pantheon, runs from Pantheon. We have some great customers in many verticals. We have a great product for the EDU space we can talk more about individually as partners. Today is really about the agency side, technology partners, and that media story, hyperscale, is great. So that's good for you as an agency. I don't think you would be on this webinar if you didn't already have a sense of that. I just like to level set. But what's the value for your customer? And I think it starts here. It was one of my favorite quotes from our buddy Mike over at Kalamuna. Standardization is the thing that makes you able to deliver that value right out of the gate. So your clients, you can go to them and say, I'm going to be able to get further in this project on your wish list and your needs list because I don't have to build the infrastructure. I already have it built. I just have to build your site. This thing is really fast. We are pre-tuned for Drupal and WordPress for most use cases. Drop a site on Pantheon, it typically goes faster than it did before. Varnish helps with that too in part of our architecture. We are extremely secure. David Strauss, our CTO, sits on the Drupal and Linux security councils. We patch things like Heartbleed or Drown or glibc as soon as we find out about them for every customer. So you are protected and not waiting for your little VM to be eventually updated by someone, or you have to go in and update it. You're just protected as a platform. Find more about that on security section of our website. And that last part, we know that if you're putting a site that has those scale needs, you're not going to have to worry about those scale needs. And that's something that puts a lot of CMOs and project owners at ease in the long run. So the last thing I'll say before I kick things back over to Brian here in the first part of this call is our business model. You've already taken advantage of the tools, hopefully by the time we're on this call and this conversation. That's Pantheon for agencies. It is always free for you as a developer. Always, always, always will be free for you to develop and test on Pantheon. Development, test, and live environments are automatically spun up when you create a new site on Pantheon. The only time we will charge you any money is when you want to take a site to production. Take a site live, configure DNS, SSL, or onboard with us to take that site, make it a live production site. We have basically two kinds of plans on Pantheon, what we refer to generally as self-service plans, the $2,500 and $400 a month plan. They're named personal, professional, and business, but you can swap that out for small, medium, large. It's all the same thing. You can use a small site for a business. That's fine with us. The main metric we use for sizing sites on Pantheon is the number of monthly page views for that particular site. It is, in fact, one site per plan. So if you have one site that gets about 100,000 monthly page views, that's going to fit very well on a professional plan. That's a $100 a month plan. If you have 10 sites that each get around 10,000 monthly page views, you're going to need 10 separate personal plans to handle that. Now, when you go to pay for these sites or go under settings for a site, the very first thing you'll see is the opportunity to invite a business owner to pay for site, a pass-through billing model. So in fact, most of our partners use that model very successfully to pass those costs directly to their customer. Customer is extremely happy with the service they're getting. You can go on as an agency to sell them maintenance agreements and upsell them for other work that you're doing with them, SEO optimization, things like that, or other projects, and not worry about going back to them month to month to get that bill for paying for Pantheon. That is the one kind of customer we have. The other kind of customer we have are elite customers. I mentioned them before. I'll say Patch, Intel, Docker. You can go look at our brag sheet out, the case studies. We have a lot of them. But our elite customers, we manage their scale. When they get millions of monthly page views, it doesn't matter how many millions of monthly page views, we can handle it. It's a drop in the bucket for us. There's a story I really like from Patch where they published a News of the Weird article last year, and it's because of syndication and just the weirdness of the story. It was about a fish, a very large fish in a local river. It got 70 million page views in a single day. If that would cause chaos, something that wasn't configured to handle that load, well, on Pantheon, it caused no issues at all. We simply scaled it, delivered all those page views, and went on. Elite also comes with 24/7 support, an SLA, an onboarding process, which is second to none. We work with you to ensure that you're tuned and ready to go, and you know what to do in every eventuality when you use Pantheon. There's a price to pay for that level of service, and those are annual contracts in the tens of thousands of dollars. Somewhere, most plans fall in the $30,000 to $50,000 a year range. Very small sites, we can work with you if they just need an SLA, or very large sites, of course, you're going to pay a little bit more, as you can imagine. We do have two other types of plan we work with for very specific use cases. If you have a company that has a lot of little sites, they want a marketing strategy around being able to spin up dozens of WordPress sites instantly, or just 10 WordPress sites instantly, and run those. We have a product that handles that called Pantheon Enterprise. Happy to get more into that one-on-one if you have a need for that, a client that has a lot of little sites or smaller sites, well, any self-service sites really, or Pantheon for EDU Plus. Again, we have a very specific offering for higher education. And again, happy to get you any more information about that after this. But I want to make sure we respect the rest of the 45 minutes we have together here and get really into the meat of this, is how to technically use Pantheon as an agency. And now I'm going to turn things over to you, Brian.
All right. Yeah. Usually at this point in time, we ask for some questions. We get some more business-related questions. So if you have any, please shoot them in there. Right now, let me switch change presenter.
Back to you.
I'm looking for the word me. There we go.
Go ahead and take it back. And we are ready to go. Okay.
All right. Oh, sweet. There we go. We've got about 4 questions to answer real quick.
Oh, sure. Is your product WordPress only? No, Drupal and WordPress, but that specifically are the two that we work with. Many small sites. What I meant is many self-service sites. So if you have a client that, say, is a car dealership and they have 40 dealerships under their franchise that they all want the same kind of website, that's an ideal use case. But those they want their own set of tools and a better price, a better contract vehicle than just paying for individual things with credit cards. That's what I meant by small sites. So to be clear, the smallest amount is $25 per site. That is correct. That is the smallest site plan we have on Pantheon, is the personal plan at $25 a month. And yes, it's the same thing. It's Drupal small websites, WordPress small websites. I was just saying WordPress because I was thinking about WordPress right before this webinar. And are you able to run more than one site per plan? No. We are sourcing dedicated, isolated resources per site. So we're not chopping up a VM for you. We are giving dedicated resources for every site that you're paying for. Actually, for every environment, whether you're paying for it or not. But that is how we price. So you're paying for that specific site and the size of that site. And static sites, we don't officially support doing static site use case on Pantheon. We're specifically a Drupal and WordPress application as a service provider, or platform as a service provider. But as you'll see in the conversation today, it's Nginx in there. Again, not supported use case, but from a pure technical perspective, we can't tell you no.
Well, it's actually awesome that you asked that, JC. I run a very large static site on the platform. Our documentation site is static. We add it to Pantheon.io and just kind of run it out of the file system. We used to have, it's possible to run static sites in Git and just not use Drupal, basically like clear out Drupal or figure out the way to hack it so that you don't start it. But I like the question. I know, Dwayne.
It's again, not a supported use case. So if you file a ticket because something went wrong and it wasn't Drupal or WordPress, that would be simply you're not doing Drupal or WordPress. You did ask a follow-up question there, JC. What about static front ends connected through WordPress through WP API? You want to answer that now, or we'll get back to it? Let's get back to it.
Yeah.
So another question before we move on here is, does professional plans still not support multi-dev, branching, etc., if this is the case? Oh, yes. So if you are coming in as an end customer and you have one site to build and that is your one site, we only give multi-dev at the business plan level. If you have signed up for Pantheon for agencies, well, then you're probably building as a team for an end client. We think that is a valuable tool to have as a professional developer building as a team for clients. So we give that to you via Pantheon for agencies. So as long as a site is associated with your Pantheon for agencies organization, with your supporting organizations, we can talk about that later as well, you will have multi-dev on every project you work with, regardless of the size. But if you're coming in, again, as just a pure end customer, you have to buy that ability. That's the way we think about the world. Is developers should have always the free tools they need, but you're going to do it as a business owner, then you need to pay for business tools.
Well said.
Thank you.
Cool. Love it. Get a little flurry of questions.
Absolutely, man. I love this thing.
That's what we present here. Oh, maybe we got a snipper. Good. This deck is there at goo.gl/rn8ac1.
I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody. Unless you already did.
No,
you did.
go for
Okay,
it.
I'll put that in the chat.
This is a very basic deck, but it has a couple of links out to a few of our docs.
I'm hand typing it. Love it when I hand type links. So let's hope this is the right one. I'm going to go double check it and verify it right now. Yay, we're at the same. So you can just go to that link out in the chat window.
Oh, and then I clicked on it instead of.
And then we will move on. Okay.
All right. So the first thing that you're going to do as an agency, new agency partner or ally, is bring some sites onto the platform. Now, does this mean like you have to move all your clients right now? The answer to that is, of course, yes. No, I'm being sarcastic. But migrating sites onto the platform right when you start is a great way to get a feel for the workflow. It's a great way to get a feel for the performance of the platform and for the security and user model that we have. We're not running cPanel, so it's a really good way to get used to the dashboard, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Basically, when you're migrating a site, you have two choices. You can import during the creation process, and this is just giving us either one zip or tar file archive or three. The single file containing your code, your database, and your files, and the three archives being one archive of each. One zip of your code base, one zip of your files, and a SQL dump. Now, when I say code and files, a lot of times new users get confused by that because generally code is made up of files. We differentiate here at Pantheon between code and files as your code is what's in version control. It's what's executable on the platform. It's generally PHP, CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. Whereas your files are user-uploaded, non-version controlled static assets, that kind of thing. It can be CSS and JavaScript if you're minifying and shipping that off to the file system with PHP, but files is in WordPress by default WP content/uploads, and in Drupal sites default files. All right, so back to migrating sites. We have a very good doc that kind of walks you through all of the ifs and thens in the migration process. You can either import again at creation with the zip files if you give us a Drush archive dump, or for WordPress like a ServerPress archive or a Backup Buddy archive or a duplicator archive. You can import those zip files, and as long as they're within the file size limits, the platform will recognize that it's Drupal or WordPress. It will replace WordPress or Drupal with our versions, their core, and you'll have your site within a couple of minutes. Alternatively, you can import after creation, so you can basically go to Sites Create on our dashboard, click the Add a New Site button, give it a name, pick Drupal or WordPress, basically create a vanilla blank Drupal or WordPress site, and then import the database, the files, and your existing code base. So you'll do that if you need to have a different upstream. So if you're running Drupal Commerce Kickstart, or if you have an Open Atrium 2 site that you want to bring onto the platform and you want to keep it tracking the Drupal Open Atrium 2 project for updates, you're going to import after creation. If you're when you get advanced as an agency and you have your own custom upstream, you'll want to create a site with that upstream and then import the content. You'll also need to import after creation if your archives are over 500 megabytes, which can be most of them. This doc here, as I said, the URL has changed. We shortened them all up for you. Pantheon.io/docs/migrate. I don't know why Chrome scrolls down. We'll walk you through the entire process. here. Okay. Actually, let me get back to the dashboard. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, that's Spotify.
I know that was.
You can all see your Rihanna.
That wasn't what it was.
Anyway. So, hey, we're looking at the Pantheon dashboard here. You're doing the old-fashioned URL manipulation instead of hitting the GUI button.
Yes.
Most people will just use the GUI button
instead of using
create new site. You can either create site from when you log in as your own user. I'm just trying to clarify for people. You log in as a user. Over on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see a button that says Create New Sites. You have so many free sites left. That is a automatic. That's the way the machine looks at the world, so people don't abuse it. But if you are in a situation where you need more sandboxes, let support know. If there's a good situation where you need just a few more sandboxes, use it there.
No.
And then the agency model, if you sign up for Pantheon for Agencies, you can create the Create Site buttons in your Pantheon for Agencies dashboard right then and there. That's actually going to automatically grant, right there it is. And that's actually automatically going to grant your agency additional sandboxes. So use that button as an agency, and you're not even going to request anything. It's just automatically provisioned.
Yeah. I actually changed the dashboard this last week to tell people to not contact support.
Oh, well, that's a new change. Things are pretty fluid around here, and we're happy to keep working with you. Why don't you go ahead, Brian?
All right, so I'm going to name this one Bases 2. Keep it affiliated with this organization. This is an ally organization. It's going to create the site, and then when that's all done, that site will be listed with the rest of them here in my organization dashboard. So here, we're at the organization dashboard. We're creating a site. There we go. As I said earlier, we can import after creation, so we can start from scratch, or we can import during creation. So the archive importer is where we would import during creation. You can either provide us a single file or 3 files. There are hyperlinks to documentation for preparing your site, creating the archives that you need to import a site. The URL method, so if you have these archives hosted publicly accessible on the internet, Dropbox or somewhere, the file size limit there is 500 megabytes, whereas the file method file size limit is 100 megabytes. So if you're uploading a file, it cannot be more than 100 megabytes. And for some reason, that information is still kind of hidden up here in the interface. If you start from scratch, so if I wanted to import an existing site with one of these 2 custom upstreams that I have, or don't forget to check your time, or if I want to use Drupal 8 or one of these other public distributions that we have for Drupal, I would click that button. Let's just click it. And then import my database, my code, and my files. All right. Andreas asks, how can I create the zip file or files from a current Drupal site? The simplest way is if you have drush ARD or archive dump. Is the command there. And Dwayne, if you would go to drushcommands.com and get the link for that specific command, that would be awesome.
Oh, the drush ARD command? Sure.
Yeah. Drush archive dump. When I discovered it, I was very happy because that's when I knew I could move my site to Pantheon, when I could zip it up real fast and then give the platform that one URL using Terminus. It was cool.
Just right there. Look what happened. We got a site ready to go while all was going on in the background. So in the time it took us to explain how drush ARD, where that's located on the internet, the platform spun up 3 separate environments, installed PHP, installed Nginx, installed the database, and configured it, installed the file system connections, configured all of those, did all that heavy lifting and spinning of stuff in the background, and ends up with you are ready to start development. And a fraction of the time it would take you to find the disk you have Ubuntu on.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sweet. This one's a WordPress site, which is cool. We can see here, now we're at the site dashboard, that I did create this site not with the regular WordPress, but with my own custom upstream version of WordPress. So I own this Git repository out there on GitHub. This can be GitHub or Bitbucket. This is an agency partner level feature.
Yes.
And this repository, WordPress CFM for the win, is something that I own and manage, and now anyone in my team or in this Pantheon training organization, all of these people, when they create sites in this organization, have access to these two upstreams. So that's kind of a power feature. What those upstreams are all of WordPress, all of the plugins that we want to use on every single site, our own custom base theme, and its child theme.
So the use cases for that, there's two that come to mind always. Calamona, one of our partners, is one of the first users of this. They start every major project from the same starting point with Drupal. It's how they like to build, and it makes their life easier there. If you think it would make your life easier to do that, let's talk. Feel free to hit us up after this. We can talk about the path to that. The other is if you're building a specific repeatable use case and pattern on Pantheon. Say you build doctor websites that are marketing front ends or something. I just pick doctor arbitrarily. And you need to stamp out the same site, the same code, just swap out the content logo. It's a very nice alternative to multi-site because you can have the users pay for the individual sites through the pass-through. Or if you're doing it at a very large scale, you can do it with a reseller, and we can talk about the virtues and benefits of that as well.
Awesome.
But anyway, we've spun up the site. Now we're looking at the Pantheon for agencies.
Yeah, so again, this is the organization dashboard. Very quickly and self-explanatory, I can filter my sites list. Once this list gets long, which it will and it should, you're going to want to filter. One of my favorite filters here is this updates in dev. That means that I'm behind a commit or two of WordPress or Drupal core. We have a command line command that you can update all of your sites at the same time, or go through them very quickly one at a time and say whether we want to pull in the updates from the upstream, which is pretty cool. We did have a question about subdomains. Do we support subdomains? I'm just going to answer that very quickly here at a site that is on a paid plan. So the way that we take sites live is here in the site dashboard, we have 3 environments out of the box: a dev environment, a test environment, and a live environment. Each have their own link here to their own unique URL. But the live environment is where you're going to want to add your custom domain. This site here has several custom subdomains. Most of the time, you're only going to have one subdomain there. So like blog.ourcompany.com. We definitely support that. And the DNS recommendations will basically just say, create a CNAME record pointed at this URL. And this URL here for the record value is usually going to be the same as is accessed from the link there.
Now, just want to make sure, since we're not talking WordPress there, the difference between doing that and, say, WordPress site network.
This one actually is a WordPress site network.
Oh, that's why we're able to do that on here.
No, so this one is a WordPress site network.
Yes.
WordPress site networks on the platform, or WordPress multi-site, are available only to enterprise customers, which this website is owned by an enterprise account, Pantheon Learning, as the corporation. And Pantheon Learning basically owns the website. The organization owns the website. If I go over here to the team thing, we'll see that it's owned by an organization. The upstream is the WordPress site network's upstream, which has some different Nginx configuration so that it can run either subdomain or subdirectory style networks. This one is a subdomain style, and it has all of those subdomains for each subsite, if you will. But it's also possible for just a normal WordPress site to be at blog.mysite.com. You just add it right there. Go to your Cloudflare, your DNS host, and get that done.
All right. Well, I think we kind of started going down there.
Let's
get back on. Look at the cool. Teams. Managing teams.
Yeah.
One of the bigger values of Pantheon. It's easier team management.
Yeah, easier, more secure team management.
Absolutely.
This has been coming up a lot lately as we get bigger. We'll see it more often. Sometimes when I see support tickets come in, I sit in the support department. We get to the user dashboard and it's a shared account. We can very easily tell that it's a shared account. We don't charge you extra for extra seats in your organization, and we really prefer that you don't use shared accounts, especially when opening tickets. And we make it very easy just to add people to sites and add people to organizations and give them access to sites. Within your organization, if you're a small agency or a large agency, it all kind of works the same. Every member of the organization has access to all of the sites in that organization. If someone is a site team member, so sites can have people and organizations have people. If you're a site team member, that basically gives you elevated permissions if you are at the organization developer role. And I'm going to stop going to Spotify.
No, you want to so bad.
What I need to do is pull this out into its own thing and then use that.
Minimize Spotify. Anyway.
Yeah, so the people in your organization, you can decide what role they have. This account that I am right now is an administrator. My friend Conrad is a developer in the organization, and my friend Jesse is a team member in the organization. Administrators have the ability to basically act as pseudo owners of all of the sites in the org. They can change some of the settings here. Developers can access all of the sites and they can commit code to the dev environment or the multi-dev environments, but they cannot deploy code to test and live. They cannot really modify or manipulate the test or live environments at all. So if Conrad here is a developer on the site, but I want to give him elevated access to the site, I can just go into the team, add him here as a team member. Yep. Click that button. Conrad's going to get an email, and now he has the ability to deploy code to test and live. People who are not members of your agency, so your clients, if you add them as team members to the site, they're not going to get access to multi-dev environments. They're not going to be able to push code and create multi-dev environments in the dashboard or use the workflow with those multi-dev environments. Because that, as we said earlier from the question, is an agency feature, not necessarily a business feature. All right. When you're developing your websites on Pantheon, here are a couple of rules of thumb. If you have more than one person working on a project, we highly, highly recommend that you use multi-dev. if someone's working on the server in SFTP mode, and another person comes in and wants to push code up to the development environment, they flip the connection mode to Git, we're going to lose work. Use multi-dev. Either give each individual person their own environment or have an environment that you create and destroy per feature. But use multi-dev. It's fairly simple to use. We'll show it a little more detail in a few moments here. Please enable New Relic for your site. We have New Relic available as an add-on for every site on the platform. You get 2 weeks free of New Relic Pro, and after that, it's New Relic Standard. The third bullet here is my most important skill for working with these multiple environments is get your configuration into code.
Now, we have a good number of WordPress developers on this call.
Yes.
And in Drupal, it's a pretty accepted pattern. It's accepted so much that they put it into the core of Drupal 8
Yes.
that CMI, configuration management, is just how you do code changes or configuration changes from code. In the WordPress world, this is not a standard quite yet. So there is a module, though, the CFM.
Yes.
And this is what we're encouraging you to go look at. So you might not have heard of this yet, but this is what we're specifically saying. Go find this module. It's written by some partners of ours with our help. Is the CFM, WordPress CFM. Go Google that. And we're happy to help with any questions around that since we helped build the module. Or, I'm sorry, the plugin. But that might be a new concept. That's all I'm saying here, Brian.
Yeah.
It's the right thing, but it might be new to you. So that's what we're talking about with configuration management.
Very soon. Lastly, cache everything and use the test environment for its purpose. So we give you 3 environments. We have a dev site, a test site, and a live site. That test site, people sometimes call it staging. Yes, it's where code gets staged, but its purpose is for final testing of the code that's committed into the master branch with the content that it already exists on the live environment. And I have a little deck to show you what that means conceptually. We'll get to in a few minutes. I want to come back to this.
Okay.
There we go. I did it right.
Hooray.
Sarcastic.
Well, no, I'm celebrating with you.
I know.
Oh, that was sarcasm the second time.
All right. This is going to be fast, I promise, because we have some demo to do.
Definitely do.
Your site is made up of 3 different things. You have your code, your DB, and your files. Again, the big difference here is between code and files. Code being inside of the code directory, files being inside of the file directory. Those files are symlinked to from site's default files in Drupal or WP content /uploads in WordPress. So anything that gets uploaded to WordPress is going to be by symlink moved over to the files directory. This is what this looks like inside of CyberDuck. When you SFTP connect to a server on Pantheon, you're going to see this list of files and directories here. The code directory is what contains Drupal or WordPress. Only in dev and multi-dev can the code directory be edited, and only when that environment is in SFTP mode. SFTP mode, where is it? I did it again. SFTP mode right here is also called on server development mode. So here I'm at this development environment at the code tool, and this toggle right here indicates that I'm in SFTP mode. If I was in Git mode, first of all, I have files that have changed that I haven't commit. If I try to flip to Git mode, it's going to warn me because all of those files will be deleted, and that will probably break my site. But when in Git mode, that directory is not editable. Do this. On test and live environments, if you're brand new to Pantheon, you're going to learn very quickly you cannot edit code. This means you cannot update your plugins or themes. You cannot install anything new. You cannot edit your CSS. Basically, those environments are locked down. All of the code changes must start in dev. So when I open up that code directory, we're going to see all of WordPress inside of there. That's what we want to see. The files directory, right there. The files might have the normal kind of WordPress files.
Drupal in this case.
This is WordPress.
Oh, it's Drush.
I know, right? Weird. Files, as I said earlier, was symlinked to. So back here, we're looking at the files directory. This is at the root of the server. But we can also get to it from inside of code wp content/uploads. And if you look very closely, you'll see an arrow there on the directory folder icon. That means that's a symbolic link. It's symbolically linked back to that files directory, and you can see that the same two files are there. All right, those three environments that you have, dev, test, and live. Dev is for, again, develop your new features. And when you see dev here, I mean also all of the multi-dev environments as well. Test, its purpose is to test your new code against the live environment's database and files. And live is just that publicly facing version of your website. Live is where new content should enter. So where all of your new posts and pages and articles should be written and published into live directly. However, when you have those three environments and those three parts, you're not really just managing your code, your database, and files. You're managing code, configuration, and content. Code changes cannot happen anywhere except for dev, while configuration changes, since they exist in the code base and in the database. So if you look very closely, you'll see these two arrows right here. Because configuration can take place on the database, it can happen in live, and that's perfectly fine. If you need to make a change to fix something on your live site, go in there and do it. But we prefer that our clients and users get their configuration done on the development environment and then migrate it up from dev to test to live with code. The content, on the other hand, is in your database and your files, and that should enter into the live environment.
Great.
We're going to jump through very quickly and talk a little bit about configuration management. Configuration management takes that configuration, so those arrows again, and exports it from the database to the code base. This exists in Drupal 8 core, and there are 3 plugins there on your screen, one for WordPress and 2 Drupal modules that we recommend and have had success with on the platform for getting configuration changes, our post types, our content types, our taxonomies, the structure at least, out from our database into our code base. All right, I'm going to jump real quick to show you what that looks like. Here, when we have 3 environments, we have our code, our database, and our files. Our content is entering into the live environment. Configuration changes are happening there on the development environment, and if we're using one of those 3 tools, we can export that configuration into code, commit that code to our code base, so make those changes, get them into your code base, and then using our deploy tool, move the code from dev to let to test and the database and files from live into test. And then again, using that same configuration management solution, get that configuration from your code into the target database. This essentially copies and pastes the configuration changes that you made in the development environment there in the test environment. Finally, we'll do that again and get that configuration change into the live environment.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So we have about 10 minutes left, and we have a good number of questions here, actually, and I'd love to get through these. We will circle back. I'd like to do that WP API one last, because yes, the short answer is yes. But how do you merge databases from two different installations? So are you mean between environments? Is that what you mean? If you could follow up there, Quentin. Just want to make sure we understand, like how to migrate or how to get things from dev to test, test to live.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, if you would follow up, and when I see merge database, this is a problem of, computer science that no one really has solved well, or cheaply. And you can't really sync and just merge two databases together.
Two different websites, is what it means.
You're going to want to move the content. Really only, right? Or, pick one, move it onto the platform, and then import all of the content and users from the other one into the primary website.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Quentin. So next up, one of my least favorite things about WP Engine is getting sudden notifications that I need to change DNS settings on all my client websites. They've updated their infrastructure. Usually the minimum I have to do is reset DNS settings, point to a record as opposed to CNAME. Is Pantheon configured in a way where it won't happen to me? Is there even possible? WP Engine recommends naming CNAME to avoid having to change, but many DNS providers I have to work with provide no CNAME. Any recommendations?
Oh, wow. Well, if your DNS host does not support CNAME, I would recommend moving to a DNS host that does. We don't generally ask every single person on our platform to change their DNS configuration.
I've never run into that as a question before. So
it happens. Like we just deployed a change so that all of these development environments. If you see this visit development site and we open it up, it's at pantheonsite.io. Whereas these formerly said Pantheon.io, and we made a change so that all of our environments now are at Pantheonsite.io. What that did for sites that were live, it made no change because they can still be accessed at Pantheon.io.
Okay. So just for sake of time, we're going to keep moving here.
Okay.
We can restrict access to get only, no SFTP. The way that is one of the things of the platform. You have to have both there in the platform, but to tell your developers to only use Git or only use SFTP. Those are options for you, but there's no way to take out SFTP mode from your dashboard.
That's correct.
Now, is there a cost to restore a site if we accidentally screw it up? Rarely happens. It's computer science. Absolutely, it's free. It's free to restore from those backups. Live sites are backed up automatically. If you could show them the backup, please, man. Live sites are backed up automatically on their live environment. You can take a snapshot and schedule anytime you want, every 24 hours. Taking that backup gives you a code, database, and file backup. We store it out on Amazon S3 in case you need to pull it back into Pantheon and get it back loaded. It's a push of a button. You'll see the restore button pop up here as soon as the code gets backed up fully. Completely free. It's the standard way we should do business, and it's there.
However, I just made a mistake that there is a very explicit warning against. This is an important thing to learn. Your backups, if you're leaving file changes on the server, so if you are using SFTP mode and not Git mode, if you're leaving those there, those don't get backed up. The backup is your Git repository, and that does not contain these 44 file changes until I finish typing this message and click the commit button.
Okay. Caesar also asks, Caesar Larios, I'm sorry, my pronunciation's terrible. But the same, different question. Say I want the client to view changes I made before going live. Is there a way to invite him to see the test version? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Every single environment has that button up there, visit development site, or visit test site, or visit live site. Mm-hmm. You can show a preview of your work. In fact, you can show them, here's the differences between your live site, your test site, things we're going to implement next, and here's the crazy stuff we're doing over in dev or the multi-dev instances without any impact on the sites at all. That's for free. That's on every site. That's just built into the way the platform works.
Yeah, so if, now that that code's committed, the site is at a place where I want my client to see it, I'm going to click this button, and the platform is creating that second environment. New application server, new database server, new set of copy of all of the files, basically doing everything new and providing me with this new URL, which is going to be test-bases.pantheonsite.io. So this one here, I put my tabs to sleep when I don't use them, is at dev-bases.pantheonsite.io. And the one that I'm creating is going to be at test-bases.pantheonsite.io. And that's, again, that's what it's for. You want your client to do their manual QA. They're on the test environment. When they sign off, then you can click the deploy to live button and move those changes into the live environment.
Great. Is Solar an option on Pantheon's platform? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's actually integrated under settings as an add-on. You do have to be at the professional or business level to take a site live to production with Solar or Redis. New Relic you should enable on everything you're doing. But Solar and Redis would need to be at a professional or business plan to take that site to production and use it.
Yeah.
However, you can develop with it for free.
Yeah. So even though this one's a sandbox site,
you can absolutely install Redis.
I can install Solar right now.
Absolutely.
So
that
created another server running Solar, ready to get the schema posted into Drupal.
Okay. The next one's a very easy one. Will today's recording be available? Absolutely. Sure. We are going to. We don't typically blast these out onto the website under resources, but absolutely write to us at Pantheon, or on partners@pantheon.io, and we will get you connected to the recording, the repository. You can use that link as you please. And we got 2 follow-up here from JC. So these will go back to the DNS question, but I do think it's important to go back and answer that WP API question here, because you asked that so early in the call or in the webinar. You want to take that, Brian?
Yeah, they work just fine. You can host that static front end in your repository as long, we don't run Node, but you can host a one site that's JavaScript and the other one that is WordPress on the platform just fine. I don't know if we have a recording of that. We do, right? We have a headless WordPress webinar.
Well, decoupled. Decoupled is what you're looking for, the keyword. Don't look for headless. Headless, in some people's opinion, means just you have no GUI,
right?
Versus decoupled means there is a separate service than the front end.
Thank you.
Anyway, sorry, I'm a stickler on that.
No, you got it. You got it. That's more accurate. We're all about that here. But yeah, they work just fine.
Yeah, decoupled is a very important thing for the future of all this. So the situation where they've bought separate DNSs, again, we're going to need to follow up with you on that one. Feel free to write us at partners or just write me directly, Dwayne, DWAYNE @pantheon.io. I'm happy to follow up with you and get you the right documentation around all of this and talk through that case with you. And then the last question, somebody just came up, and I think it's going to be our last question of the day, Tim. Tim Godfrey asks, what caching do you have on your servers? Memcache? Varnish?
Varnish.
And that, if you go, well, I don't have my slides up, but if you look at that architecture slide I showed in the very, very beginning, what we have is an edge layer which it handles the load balancing and routing, and that's where we bake varnish right into that. So you are getting a pre-tuned varnish you don't have to mess with. In fact, if you're a WP WordPress developer out there, we actually advise you to turn off your front-end caching, turn off your W3 cache or what have you, because we take care of that caching for you. It's one of the services we provide. And it's just automatically there. And someone did ask a follow-up, an email address to request this session. I'll put it in chat right now. Yes, I will do that for you. Thanks very much for asking, Margaret. Question is partners@pantheon.io. And that is there. Feel free to write us any, did I spell it right? Partners, yes, pantheon.io. And we'll get back to you with the best information and follow-up. All right. Well, Brian, we did it again. Once again, we hear the bells of St. Mary. We're in San Francisco. Across the catty corner to us is St. Mary's Cathedral, St. Mary's Church, not the cathedral, the church. It's been here for a very long time, and those bells mean we have reached the top of the hour. And that means it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. And as you have questions, let us know. Thank you.